Hello. Welcome to your weekly energy report for the week of October 5th through 11th, 2020. I probably seem a little beaten down because, well, I am. And we are all mirrors to one another, and that is the purpose that I serve in being here today, as every week, to mirror back to you a little bit of what is going on in our collective consciousness, or conscience, however you'd like to call it. Let's be honest, the Mars retrograde is just enormous in its influence. Where do we start? It is all an egoic unraveling, and it's hard to really process when you feel as though you've spent the better part of a decade unraveling from all of those egoic constructs that have defined our every move, our every interaction, our every disappointment, our every sense of victory. And as we're in this last stretch through the Mars retrograde of some very, very intense energies that we've seen in 2020, the likes of which we have never seen before and probably won't see again. That's not to say that there won't be other challenges, but nothing quite like the convergence of what we have experienced this year. So it stands to reason that there should be some massive upgrading taking place within us, right? And massive upgrades don't come without tests and distortions that in turn allow us to find a different sense of interconnectedness with our environment, the ability to rise above even the most low frequency energies among us, not feeling attacked even though we know that we are under constant energetic attack. Transcending. Every step is a step towards transcendentalism. And at this present moment, we are being given the opportunity to see how we can... Oh my God, really? I am going to keep that outburst in this video to show you exactly what I'm talking about, because the thing is, for me, that situation is tons of baggage of feeling like somebody in my world disrespects me. But at the same time, it's like, who gives a flying fuck? Because those triggers within myself are mine to master. And if I give in to being triggered, I empower the other person's well, I become an enabler, right? Because, you know, the darker forces around us, everybody contains them who is not on a path towards spiritual enlightenment. And unfortunately, ignorance is a facet of that. I need to take a deep breath. Okay. So, the Mars retrograde comes with a variety of steps along the way, squares in particular, that are more difficult than your average hurdle. This being, particularly at this very present time, and we will be moving out of this during the course of the week that this corresponds to, Saturn squaring Mars retrograde. Saturn being restrictions and rules and measures of time and space, but also Saturn represents the massive leveling up that we're also aiming for. But of course, in order for us to go through that process, in this particular instance, we're talking about Saturn in Capricorn. The Capricornian energies also being about structure and authoritarianism versus authority, and all the things we've discussed throughout the course of this year. These matters are extraordinarily dense. And when Saturn moves into Aquarius, there'll be more harmony in that aspect, but at the same time, it is not going to come without its lesson, because that's the nature of life, right? We'll get to that by the end of the reading, based upon the cards pulled. So anyway, if you are feeling tense, intense, frustrated, confused, blocked, provoked, unheard, unseen, it's on you. You weren't expecting that, right? Well, because we create our own reality, right? So, and that is part of what Saturn in Capricorn is all about, is understanding the delineation of our own authority and how that, in fact, allows us to transcend the limitations of the earthly plane that are inevitable to our circumstances, because even if we went and lived out in the middle of nowhere, nature itself would provide its own version of a hierarchy and an authority structure, and so on and so forth. I wanted to get that out of the way. I know we talked about it last week too, but it is big, and it is trying for any of us that are awake in some shape or form. I can guarantee you this week something has come up for you that challenged your own authority over yourself, and challenged you to find a new way of moving beyond that. And when you're watching this, if you're watching it at the beginning of the forecast period, you are likely to still be in the midst of trying to figure that out. So be aware of that. Know that you are on the right path, that you are going to find a solution. And it's all in perfect alignment. Just breathe, be present, allow yourself to observe your feelings and release them. They are a mere passage of energy in a specific time that we inevitably move beyond. And by being awake through that process, we observe and retain our responses, how those responses benefit us and how they do not. And logically, from there, we move forward into a freer spectrum. So, the good news, astrologically, is that we, and this is actually attached to the Saturn square Mars retrograde that we just talked about. The good news is that we have the third of the Venus sextile Neptune transits of this year. And the third passage is the one where we graduate. So all of the things that have been testing us this year, in many ways, this is the moment when we get that big aha moment where we suddenly understand things from a slightly different perspective, and in turn, it's like one brick in the wall comes out and then the wall starts to crumble, hopefully in a controlled demolition format in your life. Because we don't want to have to clean up the mess, right? Anyway, I could use allegorical euphemisms and analogies and metaphors in order to broaden the spectrum as much as possible, but you will know if this speaks to you, right? And that's okay if it doesn't. Maybe this will awaken you to that process within yourself, or maybe you just aren't experiencing that right now in your life, and because you have other things to focus on, and when another transit, because there will be another transit of some shape or form in your future based upon your own personal astral chart, that will get you to the same place, because that's all life is, a cycle. When we just, every time, there's a reason why we live in this, heliocentric solar system. The idea of the circle of life, transiting around the sun, gives us the opportunity to upgrade over and over again. Anyway. I'm talking a lot. 10 minutes in, and I have just been talking about the astrology. But that's a good thing, because all of it supports the reading. I don't know how this enlightenment is going to work for you, but in my life, based on my own personal frustrations and the things that have been holding me back, and the illusions that I've been holding on to, in other words, a lot of those illusions are that the problem lies outside of myself. Well, once you've worked through the egoic struggles, accepting responsibility for your own ability to change is a fundamental upgrade, because you're not fighting yourself with your ego anymore, and you can see that even though other people suck, your response to them sucking is what creates your reality. And that's probably the simplest thing that I will ever say, and one of the hardest things to integrate. And the fact that we are actually having the opportunity to level up to that degree is massive. Okay, I'm done. Let's get on with our cards for the week. We'll start with the Sacred Destiny Oracle card of the week, and, well, could it be any more transparent and straightforward? Transformation. We've had this card before. I will make no commentary on the card itself. I will simply read the Sacred Landscape message, as it's always a good reminder, based upon what we've just talked about, of what the opportunity for transformation truly is. This is the time for change, reinvention, or a rebirth into a new way of being, or a new attitude. If you've been plodding along, this card suggests that you take measures to shift everything. Don't resist change. The blue color suggests a spiritual renewal or initiation. Transformation doesn't mean taking something old and remodeling it or rearranging a few things. It means becoming something completely different or doing something completely different. Change is often uncomfortable, but it is usually for the highest good. This is a very lucky card, and drawing this card can mean that a wish may be about to come true. Do you have wishes? I just realized I'm not really sure if I have any wishes. I'm not sure that I've allowed myself to really feel that I deserve to have wishes. Something to think about, I guess. Our Spirit Animal Oracle card of the week is number 51, Sandpiper Spirit, Be Playful. Also an interesting dynamic, considering the heaviness that we've been in. The oracle message of Sandpiper Spirit is, sandpipers are like cute little clowns poking their beaks into the sand before darting off to chase the waves. The appearance of Sandpiper Spirit is a sign that now is a time to engage your playfulness. Whatever tasks you have before you, perform them with a lightness of being. Explore the familiar, discovering the new in the old. Who knows what treasures await you when you let yourself laugh and have fun. Sandpiper Spirit's happy and curious nature can help you to feel rejuvenated as you remember your ability to run and fly and dance playfully. When your heart is heavy and life seems to weigh you down, Sandpiper Spirit's message is to lighten your burden by finding joy and humor in the everyday. Become like a playful child, filled with curiosity and wonder, and soon you will find you feel your own spirit lift. A few minutes or hours of fun-filled delight is exactly what you need now. Enjoy the ridiculousness of life and be willing to jump in. Let your inner goof out to express itself with abandon. And, you know, it's hard to be goofy when you are focused on spiritual awakening and the likes. Which is a very counterintuitive way of presenting things, I understand that. But, you know, we do so much unraveling, and we do so much self-analysis, and we become very self-critical in that, and we become rigid in a certain way, because the things that when we gain new knowledge, that becomes dogmatic in return. You know, these become doctrines in our life, and it's important to understand that spiritual messages are not there to restrict us. They are to liberate us. And so therefore the easiest way for us to liberate ourselves is to stop taking life so fucking seriously. And that's hard to do when you get down. And, you know, sometimes it is, like, honestly, like the astrology that we just talked about, you know, that makes it really, really hard sometimes to be light. and add some irritants in your environment, and it's like, oh, holy fuck, like, will I ever be light and buoyant and joyful again? Well, again, it's our choice, right? I will get there, and so will you. Maybe even in this reading, I will get there. Right now, I still feel this heaviness in my belly, and it's just, Mars, like, it's like, when it's in retrograde, it's like all that fiery, and it's Aries, Mars in Aries, so it's like the individual needs, and it's like it's all, internal. It's all facing inwards right now, and so it's important to check in with ourselves on how that process is going, and to make sure that it's, we're not fighting ourselves, because what's the point of that? And letting enjoy and allowing ourselves to be more playful, obviously, is the perfect way to invite new opportunities, new perspectives, new higher frequency resonance, and so on. Our Wisdom of the Oracle card this week, the card is as dull as the sentiment, but let's turn that around. Chop wood, number 42. I'm not even going to show that for that long, because he wants to look at that. But I'm not even reading from the book. Basically, we all know what that means. What it means is pay attention to being present in the moment, and finding ways to imbue daily tasks, the simple moments that we may consider bland or boring, to imbue them with the spirit of childlike energy and playfulness, because that's how we apparently move forward. I feel the levity coming. It's not quite there. It doesn't help when it's really frickin' hot, and it is really, really hot here. Not indoors, but for some strange reason over the last year, something else that's really weird has happened to me. I used to love air conditioning, but I find central air antagonizes me, so that also is not helping right now. The sound, the artifice of it, Wah, wah, wah. Complain, complain, complain. Okay. So those are done. Let's move on to our tarot messages of the week. This is our underlying energy of the reading. The Three of Cups. Community, celebration, joy, interconnectedness. Everything that we've just talked about that we need to aim for. And the only way to reach that is by letting go of the old stories and opening up. Everything that annoys me, I must hit the reset button on and give it the opportunity to not annoy me. And how do I do that? By changing how I respond, by changing how I interact, and by changing my own personal narrative. So our past energies, we start with the Queen of Pentacles. So basically, we did all of that work to be in the place where we know our own worth and where we feel the ability to give and receive from a place of abundance. But what screwed that up for us is sorrow, heartache, loss, that in turn defines these patterns that we created, that then made our journey much more uncomfortable for us. And I did ask for a clarifier on that, and don't ask for the method in my madness, but I took a clarifier from the Osho deck, and we got the politics card again. So, you know, it's an interesting self-analysis, right, to realize that the way that you actually fell into the sorrow of being focused on our loss rather than focused on the two cups that remain, is through the masks that we wear. You know, when we get hurt, we accumulate new masks, because what we tell ourselves is, oh, if I respond authentically like that, if I try to experience this with someone else, and they hurt me, or I respond with hurt, I will not do that again. And the only way to not do that again is to wear a mask, have a force field in place, you know, put a boundary in place that, you know, might have been necessary in that particular situation based upon where your ego is at in that very moment that you had that massive injury that caused you to shut down. But it's not applicable to every other opportunity that's going to come along in your life, right? So by the time you reach, you know, midlife, let's say, I mean, perhaps actually a lot earlier than that for a lot of us. I mean, for me, it certainly was the case by the time I was, you know, in my early 30s. There were, you know, the masks were in place to the degree where who I presented of myself was not an authentic being whatsoever. I had to be in control of the narrative and everything in my life. And eventually that led to such dissonance and discord in my experiences with other people that I just stopped having as many experiences. And that's how you lose joy and playfulness, right? Because your spectrum just becomes more and more narrow, and you already know the outcome of everything in your mind. And so you limit yourself and eventually become extremely restricted in your experience of life. And that's very sad. I mean, when I say it's very sad, I mean it's very sad in the sense that in this lifetime, if you don't, you know, I mean, fortunately, the universe pushes us to overcome those things. Those are what tower moments essentially are in life. But some people are really, really stubborn, and they can, like, experience tower moment after a tower moment, and it won't make any difference. They'll still be stubbornly holding on, and they might put on an extra mask after that, a really, really thick mask that, you know, means that they can't even recognize themselves. This is deep, right? Wow. And, you know, when you're in that sorrow and you lose your sense of abundance, you find yourself in this position. The Two of Swords. This is the inability to put down one of those swords, to actually just commit to a truth. You know, you are trying to please everyone. You are walking on eggshells. You are unable to make informed choices because you don't know how to take the temperature in your life anymore, because you're playing to another person's rhythm all the time. And sometimes not even. Sometimes you're playing to the anticipated rhythm. And you try that. You try dancing without a beat. And then film yourself. And eventually you're going to look pretty fucking crazy. I'm not sure if that really was the greatest analogy to make, but it worked for me. So hopefully it made sense. And, you know, there were two clarifiers came out on that. No, were there two clarifiers? No, there weren't two clarifiers. There was one clarifier came out on that card. The Knight of Wands. So what broke us out, or is breaking us out, because this is the precipice of the present moment, breaking us free from the blindfolded Two of Swords energy, you know? Again, the implication being that the mask has blinded us to our own needs and our own evolutionary process, conscious, intentional manifestation. The Knight of Wands comes along. The Knight of Wands is very fast-moving energy, and it's a transformative energy because this is inspiration. This is passion. You know, this is the moment in our life that we get to choose. You know, do we want to like be feeling like crap and feeling uninspired and feeling like restricted by like other people's rules and other people's, you know, or do we want to find that playfulness of Sandpiper spirit? You know, do we have it in us to find the ability to interject in our own lives, to stop the boring narrative of the mundane frustration of restriction and telling ourselves that, oh, I can't do this until this happens and blah 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 blah, and you know, sweep the floor with joy and passion, right? Easier said than done, but you know, if you're in the right frame of mind, even cleaning is fun, right? Yeah, so that is what's getting us out of that funk. And that probably is what the Venus sextile Neptune payoff is going to be. A resurgence of passion in our soul. Which, in our present upcoming week, takes us here to the Six of Pentacles, which is, well, we had a lot of this last week, right? We were talking about it in conjunction with the concession, or the, was it concession? Compromise card, sorry, in the Osho Zen deck. And you know, the misunderstanding, I mean, even I stated in last week's video, when I saw the word compromise, to me, I embraced the notion of compromise as if it was something normal, and it's not. What the message really was is that when you are content enough to be giving to others, there is no compromise, because you're not giving to deplete yourself. You're giving because you have enough beyond yourself to give, right? When we are in an egoic struggle, you know, the next card is the Five of Wands reversed. So, you know, let's put it upright for the sake of the story. So when you're in this space, which is, for me, you know, it's a card of chaos and change, a 5, but it's one, when it's upright, that is fought entirely via the ego. You know, this is sparring for the sake of gamesmanship, and you know, the ego is a game, you know. So as a result of recognizing the fullness of our worth and the fact that we are not depleted by giving to others, that we don't, you know, it isn't by not responding to an activation or a trigger, you know, that we are depleting ourselves. In fact, we are giving more to ourselves because we're giving ourselves peace and space to grow into the full beauty of who we truly are, in our full authenticity. And then the overflow we give to those around us, even those that provoke us and cause us the most difficulty, because that will in turn sort of self-eradicate, right? So 6 of Pentacles, Five of Wands reversed. We stop doing that. We stop we stop fighting for our ego survival. And maybe part of the reason why we have Sandpiper Spirit telling us to be playful while we're in the chrysalis of transformation, and that we're supposed to focus on chopping wood, in other words, finding joy in the mundane, is because we get the Three of Wands. And the Three of Wands is when we know our worth, but we know it's going to take a little bit of time for to see our ships come in. We will be receiving those gifts, but there's a period of time, probably this next week, where we have to sit with our, the view as it currently is. Take it in. Give ourselves the opportunity to appreciate our accomplishments, to observe our change in attitude, to experience it in a quiet, slow, intentional manner. This week I got a couple of downloads, if you can call them that, of messages regarding exactly what we're talking about, and I will share those in a moment. But the Three of Wands is specifically the notion of there being, I don't like using the term impasse. I've been using it a lot lately, but impasse to me implies it's that period of time when we've received the upgrade, but it hasn't quite gone into action, right? So that's what I'm trying to say there. So these are my two downloads. Well, there were a few actually. Okay, this is the first. Beauty is when you can tell someone put a lot of effort to make it. In other words, it does not matter if you judge somebody's effort mediocre, like you might not see the beauty in what they have done on a superficial aesthetic level, but recognizing the effort they put into it is what makes something truly beautiful. Not sure why I'm telling you that one. Now, this was quite interesting. Okay, I will reveal this to you, even though it's deeply personal. It was something that it was amusing on my own experience of life, and so, I don't know why I'm sharing this with you, but I will. I spent my life not wanting to fall behind, only to fall further than my own imagination could allow. That is this, right? So, I guess these seeds have been planted all along. And my mantra of the week, because I always have personal mantras that I follow that come to me, and I update them into daily reminders on my iPhone so that I'm forced to ping my conscience to incorporate them into my daily grind. And this week was, make everything intentional and beautiful. And that is also quite difficult, right? So anyway, I just thought I'd share those things with you. They may as well serve you as well as me. Where are we? Moving on into our near future energies. The first cards we got, these two came out together. Well, this one came out, this one was beneath it. So, because I don't really think that we're in a period of walking away from things that are conflictual, in the sense that I think that, all of these energies are pointing towards not being in conflict with anything or anyone in our environment, because we resolve the way that we handle those things. We're getting communication that allows us, that reinforces this sense of moving beyond the restrictions of these 8 cups, this person is going on to seek the 9th and 10th cup, right? So you know, and these messages coming in are what are going to allow us to do that. And that could be, well, the fact that we have it clarified over a Cups card tells me that it's most likely to be in the emotional realm. It could be in other ways in your life too, but we got an extra message to clarify that because it seemed very broad, or should I say big, you know. And I, again, took that one from the Osho deck, and the card that we got was Going with the Flow. So that kind of taps into the Chop Wood and the Be Playful card again, right? Going with the flow. Not resisting. That's what we most, you know, that's been a huge underlying influence in everything over the last couple of years. Like on my spiritual journey, very often when I found myself scratching my head and trying to figure out what exactly was going on and what was the cause of this, it was resistance. You know? Resistance is a form of self-rejection. So, going with the flow, well, that's what brings us new experiences that in turn allow us to not only test the lessons that we've learned, but also get us on the trajectory to new lessons to learn, which is the only purpose of life, right? So, and there's a big one that comes as a result of that, letting go and going with the flow. We drop this. We drop this. 3 of frickin' swords. I mean, you can't make this shit up. We've got the 5 of cups in our past. So this is the emotional disappointment card. Then we had the 5 of swords, of wands, sorry, which is our egoic struggle with those around us, overturned. And then in our future, we overcome these 2 energies. The 3 of swords, which, you know, the 3 of swords we often look at as being a heartbreak card, but it's an egoic heartbreak. I mean, we forget, swords are ideas, swords are thoughts. So this is our heart, you know, as viewed as the ego being stabbed. You know, it's like when somebody rejects us, when we get dumped, when a relationship falls apart, you know, when we outgrow something and it's painful to step away from it, you know, when somebody inflicts a mortal wound when we're very, very small in our lives, you know, when we're in those first 10 years of our lives, you know, it can be somebody making fun of the shirt you're wearing, or, you know, I still to this day, I mean, it's funny, I'm wearing a pink shirt today, and I remember to this day having this peach-colored t-shirt. It was like a polo shirt, I believe, or I don't remember exactly. When I was in my adolescence at this French high school that I went to, and I was new in the school, and this one girl, well, there were many people made fun of me at that time because I was foreign and I was adjusting to a new culture, and they were homophobic, they were mean, they just didn't like difference, you know, like kids are hideous in that way, right? And I remember this girl saying to me, like, "Oh, I love your shirt. Do they make the same for boys?" And that was it was a huge wound for me, you know, that kind of thing. And because I got those things over and over again from when I was a really, really young kid. I mean, I had a father that used to call me a faggot. I mean, he used the word poofter because that's what British morons do, but, you know, imagine telling a 3-year-old that they're a faggot. You know? The kinds of wounds that inflicts on a person. I mean, it's horribly painful and causes an enormous amount of mask wearing and not being able to trust that being authentic can be rewarded. So going with the flow allows us to overturn this hurt, all of these ego hurts, and in turn, it stops us from being in this, I want to use the term complacency, but it's not a real complacency because it's a forced complacency, because when we're in this energy, we become complacent and disenchanted, right? We can't see the opportunities that are coming to us because we're so stuck in this pain, and we become addicted to that pain. So remember, it's upside down. Goodbye. And what comes in return is the power of inspiration and creativity and sexuality, potency. This is like male fertility. When I say male, obviously I'm meaning archetypal, not the fact that you have a schlong, you know. Although if you do, send me a message. I'm kidding. I guess that's being playful, right? Whoa, I am really intense today, right? All over the place. So, I guess you are too. And our outcome, well, we get 2 Rider-Waite cards. This is the first. Well, you know what? When you overcome this, you inevitably feel a bit like this. And we had this last week. And again, very important to pay attention to how this person's hand is, because what this symbology means, it's the same symbology as I think the Pope has, the Hierophant? No. I don't know. In any case, this, it's either the Hierophant or the Devil, but like basically the meaning of this, I believe, is that what you see is not everything that's there. So in other words, the horizon is where we discover. These swords, again, let me remind you, they are the swords of the past. This person is not really on the ground with 10 swords in their back. This is a state of mind that we leave behind when we focus on the horizon. And what does that lead to? This energy of the Two of Cups, which, again, if you are romantically inclined, that's a wonderful thing. But if you're already in some form of union, or it could be a deep friendship, or any kind of you know, interconnectedness between two people, you know, it's the opportunity for this free flow between them in equality. That's the only way that true love exists. And that's what comes to us when we drop these masks and stories and we move beyond the end of this cycle, because let's remember that the 10s are the end of a cycle. So all that pain, we're dropping that story. And we get 2 clarifiers on the bookends of this reading, because as we started with the Three of Cups as our underlying energy, I also pulled an Osho card for an equivalent, and it's pretty much the same, sharing. So, again, I'm not reading this message from the book this week because I'm just going to focus on our outcome card. But I think that pretty much speaks for itself. You know, when you consider that we had this and this, you get the message, right? And our outcome card is consciousness. And I will read the consciousness card. This is the Ten of Swords. So, again, you can't really get more serendipitous than that, right? So, I will hold this up for you while I read, because I get very self-conscious when I'm reading on camera for some strange reason. We come from the unknown and we go on moving into the unknown. We will come again. We have been here thousands of times and we will be here many thousands of times more. Our essential being is immortal, but our body, our embodiment, is mortal. Our frame in which we are, our houses, the body, the mind, they are made of material things. They will get tired, they will get old, they will die. But your consciousness, for which Bodhidharma uses the word no mind, is something beyond body and mind, something beyond everything. That no mind is eternal. It comes into expression and goes again into the unknown. This movement from the unknown to the known and from the known to the unknown continues for eternity unless somebody becomes enlightened. Then that is his last life. Then this flower will not come back again. This flower that has become aware of itself need not come back to life, because life is nothing but a school in which to learn. He has learned the lesson. He is now beyond delusions. He will move from the known for the first time, not into the unknown, but into the unknowable. And as long as you're alive, you know, you will reach the Ten of Swords over and over again. I mean, some of us pack more of these into one lifetime than others. I feel like I've had like 100 of these, but I exaggerate probably. But, you know, that could also imply that I'm stupid and that I need to like do things a lot more in order to learn the lesson, right? And the commentary continues. Most of the cards in this suit of the mind are either cartoon-like or troubled, because the influence of the mind in our lives is generally either ridiculous or oppressive. But this card of consciousness shows a vast Buddha figure. He is so expansive he has gone even beyond the stars, and above his head is pure emptiness. He represents the consciousness that is available to all who become a master of the mind and can use it as the servant it is meant to be. When you choose this card, it means that there is a crystal clarity available right now, detached, rooted in the deep stillness that lies at the core of your being. There is no desire to understand from the perspective of the mind. The understanding you have now is existential, whole, in harmony with the pulse of life itself. Accept this great gift and share it. And I will. But I would like to make one final comment on that, which is that letting go of all of this heavy, heavy shit, it may have served you in the past to get to this point, but it does not serve you any longer. And the lightness of being that can come in as a result of dropping attachments to masks and false narratives that no longer serve any purpose, it's infinite in its beauty and power, that then in turn becomes your beauty and your power. And it makes sense that when we make eternal space in the no-thingness, the great beyond, beyond all these egoic attachments to things and descriptors. We find a lot more freedom the closer we get to that, right? So that is all I have to say. I hope this has been helpful for you. I understand that this might not be as pronounced for you in your life in terms of the intensity with which I conveyed it all, but I've always been a bit dramatic. And of course that means that my life has reflected that in my experiences and choices. That's the way a Leo functions. Especially one with a Pisces moon and Taurus rising. So, wrap that around your dingle-dong and suck it. Fuckers. I kid. I love you, and I'm sorry if I offend you with my vulgarity, but namaste.